Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Cyber Hiring Right with RightTrak Cyber Aptitude Assessments. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Adriana Bolos with Cloud Range. We're all really excited to be here and to see everyone who's joining us today. We've got a great group of people and are so thrilled with everything we have going on at Cloud Range for our newest product launch. All right, let's get started. I'd like to turn it over to Debbie Gordon, founder and CEO of Cloud Range.
Hello, all. Thanks, Adriana. Nice to see all of you today. I've got a bunch of people on here who are existing customers and folks we know. So welcome, everybody. As Adriana said, my name is Debbie Gordon. I'm a founder and CEO of Cloud Range, and I'm just so excited to be here today. We've been working on shrinking the cyber skills gap for many years now, and we're so excited about launching the RightTrak Cyber Aptitude Assessment. And I know just specifically for some of the folks on the call here today, this is something that is solving for a lot of the challenges that you all have as you're trying to get hiring right with cybersecurity. So just a little bit of background on Cloud Range. We were founded in 2018, so a lot of years in cyber.
Debbie,
built industry's first fully delivered cybersecurity training. So, are you able to see my screen?
Debbie, you're breaking in and out.
All right.
Beautiful.
Okay. Hopefully that won't happen again. Thanks for the heads up. So anyway, we set out to address the skill shortage in cyber using simulation. For those of you who already work with us, you'll know that we have the world's first cybersecurity simulation solutions, and universities and governments can use our solution without having to figure out how to design and execute simulation training exercises. We do it all for you. And this really is a new category in cybersecurity. The concept of a cyber range is not new. That's traditionally more of a testing sandbox. But what we've done is created an entire solution around developing and continuing to upskill and develop prospective cyber talent and existing cyber talent. So whether somebody is looking to get into cyber as a student, or whether somebody has been in cyber for 20 years or even longer before it was even called cybersecurity, we provide training and upskilling programs for everyone. We do work with customers all around the world. We're really excited. We have an amazing team here at Cloud Range. So our customers are anywhere. I mentioned schools, so higher education, government, large enterprises, consulting firms, and I see a lot of you all represented here today. So let's chat a little bit about the cyber skills shortage and kind of why we do what we do. So you've all probably heard about this massive skills gap, probably exceeding 4 million now. I think a few years ago it was 2.5 million, then it was 3.5 million open jobs in cybersecurity, and it's north of 4 million now. So what this means is that, besides the obvious, that companies are having trouble finding the perfect person, the purple unicorn. The number of people required to not only fill these jobs, but do these jobs effectively simply don't exist. So those purple unicorns that companies want to find out there, they're realizing that they really don't exist, and they have to solve the problems on their own and create their own workforce. 4 years ago, Gartner estimated that by 2022, which here we are today, 15% of large enterprises will be using cyber ranges to develop the skills of their security teams, which was less than 1% in 2018. So as you can see, the adoption of using simulation to accelerate people's skills is growing rapidly, and we're at the forefront of this. We see it every day because we really help to create this space, and it's so impactful. We see customers and teams, cyber teams, who are anywhere from people who are super green, just coming into cyber, to really experienced, and how much using simulation accelerates that. And so you're going to see where I'm going to get into the cyber skills assessment here in a minute, or I'm sorry, the aptitude assessment, and how that fits into this. So some of the implications of the skill shortage, and this might be obvious to some of you, but the skill shortage isn't just about having people to defend against attacks. It's not just about filling empty seats, but there are implications beyond that. The obvious one is the first bullet here: vulnerabilities and exposure and risk. But when people in an organization don't have a replacement, so if somebody wants to move up in cyber, let's say they're entry level, they want to move up, but there's nobody to backfill them, they can get really burned out. It also means that they don't necessarily have a career path, which means that retention becomes even more difficult, and it only leaves time for cyber professionals to be reactive versus proactive. And we know that in an organization where there is a very healthy cyber program, being proactive is absolutely necessary, and we can't just wait for people to work defensively. So all of these things are implications of the skills shortage. And so there are a lot of ways that we have to address the skill shortage. We have to give them experience. And as you all know, people are only as good as the experience they have. But we have to be able to give that to them because, as I mentioned, that purple unicorn simply doesn't exist. And so folks in higher ed are realizing that they need to create workforce, talent development, talent creation, and security leaders in organizations are now realizing that it's their responsibility. So whereas training and development traditionally is a function of HR and L&D, and obviously hiring managers and management in general, the role of security leaders is also changing in that they have to look at how to develop people, not depend on HR to do it, and also ensure that they have a plan for how to upskill people, keep them engaged, and have a career path within their company and a learning path within their company. And a lot of this is now falling on the security leaders because HR doesn't necessarily know what they don't know about getting the right people in place. And so people are the greatest asset in the security stack. And as much as we have to, look at new technologies and add more to that part of the stack, the people are really the greatest asset in there. And so organizations are realizing that they have to maximize that. And as a result, I'm going to add some humor here, you have to grow your own. Again, the purple unicorn doesn't exist. And so organizations now realize that, whether they're a large organization, small organization, they have to develop their own folks. So how do we do that? So here's where we're going to get into the initial cyber skills assessment. So when we think about learning, there's three elements here: knowledge, skills, and abilities. And I'm sure you all have heard these three words together. But knowledge is, things you learn. I like to use sports analogies. So knowledge is, in baseball, all the rules, how to play the game. So you can recite a rule book front to back, but maybe you never actually picked up a bat. Skills is knowing the rules and knowing how to hit a bat. And then abilities is, can you actually play in that game? And as you all know, there's plenty of people who know every rule of a sport, might know how to hit a ball or throw a ball, but if you put them on the field with a baseball team, they will fall on their face. And so 90% of training in cyber has traditionally been just knowledge and skills based. And that last piece, the actual abilities, the ability to actually perform in a job, is what's been lacking. And so people need the right training, the right education, the right skill development and then of course the right practice, whereas we provide the simulation to be able to actually perform that job. And in cyber, it becomes very risky if you wait till a production environment to see if you know what you're doing. But in order to get knowledge, skills, and abilities right and hire the right people, we have to make sure that people start off in the right seats and they're doing what they are innately capable of, having nothing to do with what they know or what their skills are, but how are they wired to be able to do the different roles. So we developed what we call the Cyber Learner Lifecycle. So this represents what a learner ideally goes through to ensure that they are on the right track, that they're in the right role to begin with, that they have the right training, that they're employed properly, and that they continually have the opportunity to be upskilled and advanced in their career. And again, ideally within a single company, because retention has become equally, if not more of an issue than hiring people is in and of itself. So the first thing we need to do is ensure that somebody is actually qualified to be good at a job. Now, you may think that that means to assess their actual cyber skills, and it doesn't. This is where the RightTrak Cyber Aptitude Assessment comes in. So in order to qualify, every one of you just think about something you're good at and something you're not good at. I bet half the people on this webinar are good singers, and half the people on this webinar are not so good singers. And maybe your family will tell you that if you're not a good singer, maybe they won't. But you have innate capabilities. And it doesn't matter if you've been to a voice coach or not. Some people just don't have it in them. Other people are really good at, say, math. Other people simply aren't. And the same is for roles in cybersecurity. So as people are getting into the career of cybersecurity, we have to make sure that they are in the right role. There are 52 different work roles in cybersecurity. Now, that doesn't mean there's 52 different types of the brain that are used in cybersecurity, but 52 different work roles. And many of them use different types of parts of the brain. So there's different cognitive constructs that are used. So the RightTrak assessment is a very simple assessment that can be conducted conducted by Cloud Range. It's an online tool. There's not actually a person doing it. Every user just logs in and gets a link to an assessment. And there are 14 different parts of the assessment, and the assessment takes just over an hour to do in total. Each part of the assessment is not cyber specific. It's not cyber related. So think about different exercises that you can do with spatial relations, patterns, memory, a lot of different things that would test your cognitive abilities. And the result of that will determine how well somebody would do in a specific job. So, for example, a SOC analyst uses a different part of the brain than a forensics analyst versus a pen tester. And as you all may guess, when somebody, if we look at young people who want to get into cybersecurity, when I always ask people, what do you think that the number one job is that they think they want in cybersecurity? The answer is they want to be a hacker or a pen tester, because that's what they see on TV. That's what they think cybersecurity is all about. But what they don't realize is that there are so many other roles in cybersecurity, and not everyone is going to be wired to be a good pen tester. Not everyone is going to be wired to be a great forensics analyst. And so the reason this is called RightTrak is obvious, but it ensures that we are getting this right, that employers are getting people hired that they may have some skills, but are they actually set up cognitively to do this? And so the results will show the different quadrants areas of expertise and cognitive abilities for cyber. There was a report that they will get that will show, excuse me, let me move forward here. It will show the different areas. So you can see on here, offensive operations, design and development, analysis and forensics, and defensive operations. It will map somebody's place on those in that matrix on where they will excel. So who this is great for is both people that are looking to get into cybersecurity. So students who say, I think I want to get into cyber, but I'm not sure what that really means. And so this will help get them on the right track. People who are changing jobs, people who are say, you know what, I've been in marketing a long time and I've heard this cyber thing is really interesting. Maybe I'd be good at that. And so it brings people in that way. Third, it also ensures that if people are looking to, if they're already in cyber and they're looking to grow and advance in cyber, that they're going to do that in a manner that they're set up for success. So this assessment is very simple. It's funny, I took it myself. I'm not going to tell anyone what my results were, and because I would be somewhere on those on that quadrant. But what I did do is it really shows what your brain does well. And where I find this really interesting, and when we talk about DE&I and leveling the playing field for people, there are a lot of young people, not just young people, but a lot of people who want to get into cyber, and they may think, oh, this job isn't for me. We've heard that with young women. They think, oh, cyber is a boy's profession. If they take an assessment like this, and it specifically says you would be good at XYZ, it gives someone something to target, something to feel excited about, because otherwise, you know, their future could be the world is their oyster. But if they have something that an assessment has said you'd be good at this, it gives them direction. And as we're really looking at trying to fill that skill shortage, we have to look at planting seeds to grow the trees of the future, working with young people, working with high school students, working with college students, working with existing cyber practitioners and professionals, and working with career changers who are moving into cybersecurity. So this is extremely visible. It is simple. We wanted to do this webinar just to make you all aware of this as the first step to get hiring right, because there's a lot of steps beyond there. You know, hiring isn't just about getting the right people, but it's making sure that they are continuing to do a good job, that they're continuing to be upskilled and have a career path. And so this is the integral first part of this. And with all of the different types of roles in cybersecurity and the different cognitive abilities that are needed to do those jobs well, this is the first step, and it's a very, very simple step that can be added to your hiring process. And there is a very high degree of accuracy to identify an individual's natural abilities and map them to the work role. So,
Debbie, your microphone is cutting out again.
Thank you. Sorry, y'all. Love that. Love our phone service. Sorry. Thanks, Adriana. Hope that's a little better. All right. So I'm going to I know we're kind of getting toward the end here. I want to go through just a few more steps in the Cyber Learner Lifecycle. So we mentioned the steps, and that's where obviously the RightTrak qualify. That's where the RightTrak assessment comes in. And then if you're looking at this from the perspective of somebody that's coming into cybersecurity, into higher education, for example, the next step is learning. So they go through learning foundational knowledge and skills, and hopefully getting on a career trajectory for cybersecurity. So then it's time for them to, they graduate, they get a degree, they get a certification, and then an employer looks to assess how well they actually are going to do in that job. And so we have a product called RightTrak Candidate Assessments, different than the RightTrak assessments. And a candidate assessment is what an employer would use to ensure that that candidate who has skills, they have certain knowledge, they have a certain aptitude based on the RightTrak Aptitude Assessment, but can they actually do the job? And so the candidate assessments immerse a candidate into a role in a simulation so that the employer can see how a candidate actually performs. So we all know that resumes and certificates can tell you a lot, but nothing tells the whole story like a live simulation assessment. And so I think of it like game film used in sports. Coaches will look at statistics of a player all day long, but when they really want to understand how a player performs, they're going to look at game film. So the RightTrak assessment does this for an employer. So then once somebody is validated through a RightTrak assessment, then they can use simulation, use a cyber range, use cloud range to accelerate the onboarding. Because as we look at the skill shortage, we want to fill those seats as soon as possible, but we also want to make sure that people are productive as quickly as possible. So we accelerate people's experience, accelerate people's knowledge and abilities using cloud range here. So I'm just showing you how all of this ties in, using live fire simulation, using lab exercises, and giving employees all of these different tools to be great at the job they're in and to continue moving forward in jobs so that they have a path. They have to have a learning path. They have to have a career path because everyone wants something to look forward to. A lot of jobs in cybersecurity can there's a lot of burnout with those jobs, especially without the ability to backfill people. And so the more we can give people a path, a learning plan and a career path within a company, the higher the retention is going to be. And so learning paths work for the role that they're in, but also for future roles within that company that they can move up into, and it gives them a plan. So all of these things work together to ensure first that we have the people that are innately qualified to do a job. So RightTrak Cyber Aptitude Assessment. And then, of course, making sure that they have the right learning, education, and training so that when they get a job, they are set up to do a job well. The employers continue to give them the training and the plan that they need, and that increases retention, and all of this together helps address the skill shortage. So slowly but surely, we're all closing that. I know everyone on here has a different role in that. It's become a pretty big epidemic in the world, and there are a lot of efforts to shrink that skill shortage, and this is another way to do it, and it starts people off on the right track. So I will be happy to take some questions from the audience here. I'm going to just see what we have on our question list, and Adriana, if you want to jump in and we can go through those. So Charles, is the skills assessment so this is a skills assessment that was developed out of a university, and it was a tech transfer project. We'll be happy to give you all some information about it. So we've got all the studies that were done. If you want any of that data, it's really interesting information, how all the results are developed, and then all the data that was collected during the creation of it. So we'll be happy to share that. And then if anybody would like a copy of the assessment, or actually a real assessment, we will be happy to share that with you too and give you a free aptitude assessment. And you'll get the results. You don't have to tell anybody what it says, but you'll get to see what somebody would go through.
When is the best time to use this in the hiring process?
So if a candidate has we like to, and we actually practice what we preach in our own company when we're hiring people. So we first like to make sure somebody is a cultural fit, number one, for the business, and that they, because there's will versus skill also. So you want to make sure somebody is actually going to, set up to be just a good candidate from a cultural perspective, company culture, that is. And then once we do that, and they have the base technical abilities, then do the assessment. You don't want to necessarily implement an assessment on somebody right when they apply, but somewhere midway through the interview process.
Someone asked what the difference between RightTrak and a DISC assessment or something like the Myers-Briggs.
Okay. So Myers-Briggs, so they fall in a similar family because these are assessments, but and I don't want to speak to Myers-Briggs too much and use the wrong terminology. But Myers-Briggs is a type indicator. It's a type of person that you are. So I'm a ENTP, so extroverted, intuitive, thinking, whatever the perceiving, I think it is. So that's the result of Myers-Briggs, whereas the result of this actually takes that and then maps it to a recommendation of certain jobs and roles in cyber that use those specific aptitudes. So it's an aptitude versus a type indicator, and RightTrak is very specific to the types of jobs, the results are very specific to the types of jobs in cyber that a person would be good at based on their aptitudes. That's a great question.
Do we have time for one more?
We do. Let's take one more and then we wrap.
All right. Someone asked if RightTrak would be able to help them transition people from IT to cyber.
Yes. And it really will help people transition, be confident about transitioning, really. Because even somebody who's in IT who has fundamental skills and knowledge about cyber or technology in general, getting into cyber is more specific than just getting into cyber. It's where do you want to go in cyber? And so it won't necessarily take your skills that you know already and say, based on these skills, here's what you could do in cyber. It's going to say, this is what type of role in cyber based on what you are innately going to be good at. Now, that being said, our program at Cloud Range actually will help somebody assess and do an inventory of their existing knowledge, skills, and abilities, and then create a learning path for them. But that's separate from RightTrak. RightTrak is really looking at somebody's innate aptitude and mapping that to how different roles in cyber utilize those different aptitudes. Very good question. So I know we're over time by a minute here. I want to thank everybody. And again, if you would like an example, if you would like to take a RightTrak assessment, send us an email at info@cloudrangecyber.com. Put RightTrak in the subject line, and we will send you a link, and you will get your results as soon as you take it. So I want to thank everybody. Great group here today, and I would love to see